And joining me now for an exclusive interview is retired Lieutenant General Ben Hodges, former commander of US Army Europe. Good evening to you, Lieutenant General.
Hey, Aaron.
We're hearing much from Donald Trump about this 19th century Monroe Doctrine, about America ruling its region. In your mind, what does this mean for the Baltic states, for the likes of Poland and Europe at large?
Well, of course, what happened over the weekend is a manifestation of the new national security strategy put out by the Trump administration back in November, which basically implies that there will be spheres of influence, and that for the United States, its sphere of influence would be the Western Hemisphere. The new national security strategy also says that Western democracies are the threat, and that Europe is pretty much on its own, and it never has anything negative to say about Russia, which is also remarkable. So I think what we're seeing is the manifestation of the Trump administration doing what he has talked about for some time, which is to leave Europeans to themselves. And I think this is going to be a disaster for the United States, because our own economic interests are tied to Europe's economic interests, and our best and most reliable allies, who we always need, are in Europe. So I'm concerned about this direction.
And by striking Venezuela, by claiming power and might in the Western Hemisphere, like you say, a manifestation of that national security document, has the United States also given the likes of Russia and China free rein in their own patches, those spheres of influence you mentioned? I mean, is Washington saying, stay away from us, but otherwise do as you please?
I think that's pretty close to, how the president believes, he and his team. Now, of course, Russia does not need any justification to do what it does. It attacked Ukraine 12 years ago. It's been conducting gray zone operations against Poland and other countries in Central and Eastern Europe long before the Trump administration came into power. So Russia may cite this or use this somehow, but this is not going to motivate them to do something that they are not already doing. China may be a little bit different in that as they look at Taiwan and they see that the United States not only is willing to use force to remove a head of government, but they also have been watching the United States over the past year during the so-called negotiations with the Russians, where the Trump administration appears to be pretty flexible about things like sovereignty. That's not good. That's not good for Ukraine or Europe, but it's also not good for Taiwan or the Philippines. So it's early, but I think the Trump administration has sent a very dangerous signal with what it's doing in Venezuela.
And what about Ukraine? I mean, almost 30 heads of state will meet in Paris tomorrow as part of the coalition of the willing. The Élysée Palace telling us tonight that Caracas and Kyiv are barely linked. Do you agree with that, or is that diplomatic speak? Will what has played out in Venezuela have a really consequential bearing on how America moves forward when it comes to Ukraine and Russia?
It's hard for me to know for sure. What's good is that these nations, European nations, are coming together, and I think that they're realizing that the Trump administration does not appear to really care significantly about Ukraine, except from perhaps a business standpoint. All the pressure from the Trump administration has been on the Ukrainians, not on the Russians. But at least the U.S. seems to be willing to continue to provide weapons and that sort of thing through sales to Ukraine or to other European countries. What I can't tell is the connection between this new strategy and Ukraine. I think our allies are understandably very concerned that not only has the administration now gone after Maduro in Venezuela, they talk openly about Cuba, and it may be more alarming, they talk openly about Greenland, with the president saying in 2 months, we're going to take care of this. And This is a real problem because obviously, as you and your viewers know, Greenland is the territory of Denmark, a a NATO ally, which means that any orders to conduct operations against Greenland would be by definition illegal orders, because it would be violating the Washington Treaty. So this is a problem that I hope the Congress finally steps up, performs their constitutional duty, and prevents the administration from doing something that would be very reckless with very significant long-term damage to our security as well as to our allies.
You mentioned Greenland. I mean, are European leaders on their way to a reckoning? I mean, will European leaders eventually face a choice? Stick with the continent's allies, stick with losing Washington's interest in military backing, or side with the United States and lose political face and potentially, in the case of Greenland, even territorial ground?
You know, I saw the other day Gary Kasparov said, you either have a sphere of influence or you are in someone else's sphere of influence. And this is where we are with Europe. Europe for too long has assumed that the United States would provide all of its protection. And so European nations failed to do what they needed to do, as well as depending on Russia for energy. And so now we're at a situation where Russia clearly is the enemy, and maybe the United States. And it hurts me bad to say this, having been a NATO officer and a U.S. Army officer for almost 40 years, but maybe we're not seen as reliable anymore. And so European countries are going to have to accept responsibility for their own security. I think we, the U.S., we're going to regret this for a long time, the lost trust. And at some point, European countries may even say, okay, you cannot have access here or bases here, things like that. I hope not, but that's something that I can foresee. At the end of the day, Europe should, let me put it this way, the United States spent zillions of dollars and decades helping Europe after the war. And I'm very proud and glad that we did it. Now, I think we're in a situation where the United States needs Europe to help us, to save us from ourselves, to stand tough against this administration, but don't assume that this is America forever now. We do have midterm elections coming up in November. And so I hope European nations will stand firm, be tough, but don't lose hope in your American ally.
We're running out of time, but given your military experience and expertise, do you believe that Donald Trump could send troops into Greenland and take over Greenland?
Well, certainly. I used to think, I was dismissed it like this is ridiculous. There's no need to. The Danes and the Greenlanders have welcomed us. So I thought there's no way he would do it. But after this weekend, it now seems more plausible. And I think he seems interested in doing something with theater like this versus just saying, okay, thanks a lot. This, in my view, would be an illegal order to the U.S. military. And I hope that they will look at it that way.
Lastly, Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen says, quote, if the United States attacks another NATO country, then everything stops. I mean, we've spent months talking about Article 5, about Washington's commitment right here on this very program. Is Donald Trump not just threatening Greenland, but threatening to shatter the NATO alliance?
Well, the alliance is based on collective defense and a set of values. There's a reason nations have always wanted to join NATO, even though it's never been perfect. That threat is still there. Whether or not the United States is seen as a reliable member of the alliance, I think it would be a disaster for all of us, all the members of NATO, if somehow this was seen as the end of NATO, although clearly this is severely damaging. This is a dream scenario for the Russians.
Retired Lieutenant General Ben Hodges, thank you, as always, for your time.
Thanks, Imran.
And that's all for World News Tonight. Do stay with us here on TVP World for more. I'm Aaron Darman. Good night.